Hello buddy, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be looking at the 8.11 patch notes. So, as always, you can find timestamps in the description if you don't have time to watch the whole video. And I'll also have a link to this Google Doc if you want to read along and skim as you watch. It's a very big patch. There's a lot of stuff going on. We're going to get through it as fast as we can. I already have a separate video that I recorded about the 80 carry changes, so I'm just going to reference you to that when we get to that. We'll talk about it a little bit. I'll give you the TLDR, but if you want to go into that in depth, because I already spent about an hour doing that video, which is a tier list, that I'm just going to reference you to that one just so that I'm not rehashing the same stuff, so we'll have time to talk about the other stuff in the video as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in here. Alright, so the biggest winners overall, I think, are going to be Lucian, Nami, and Rengar. Biggest losers will be Caitlyn, Jinx, and Vlad, and then we'll go into sort of what that is. So if you just kind of want the TLDR, you know, that's pretty much what that's going to be. Okay, as far as Pyke, I also have a Pyke video that I'm just going to reference here. I'll talk about him really quickly, but once again, if you want the full deal, that's about, I think it's like a 45-minute to an hour-long video about Pyke from the PvE. His stats are basically the same. They're even a little bit worse than when I shot that video on the PvE. So everything that I talked about there should basically be accurate. Unless on release they buff him a lot or change a lot of stuff, then this is still going to be pretty accurate. So my assessment of Pyke, and we can go ahead and pull him up here really quickly, is that he's going to be very weak on release, especially in the support role. Now, we might see him in the mid lane as an assassin. I don't think he's going to be fantastic there either, but I think that would be his best place in the mid lane, where he can actually build assassin items, and he's going to have lots of roam potential with his Ghost Water dive. So I think that's probably his best position. People have been talking about him in the jungle. I don't think he's going to be that great in the jungle just because he doesn't have really good sustain. Remember that this thing right here only applies to enemy damage that he takes from enemy champions. So he can't just step into a bush in the jungle and get through it. And I think he's just going to get run over by a lot of the other early game junglers. He just doesn't have enough damage. And a lot of that comes from his Bone Skewer doing reduced damage when it hits multiple targets. So yeah, I just don't think he has the kit to jungle. So the main problem with Pyke, he does have a really cool kit, but as a support, there are a few main problems that I think are going to hold him back, even if they buff his stats just a little bit. So the number one issue is that there aren't good items for AD assassins in the bot lane. That's the major thing, right? That's why we haven't seen a lot of other ADs in the bot lane. We've seen Misfortune from time to time, but the reason for that is she's very different in the fact that she has an AP skill to start with her Make It Rain, which is what you get at least 3 points in lane, and I believe you max still as support. And that's AP damage, so she can get Sorcerer Boots early on, your tier 2 Sorcerer Boots, and that gives you a lot of extra poke damage with your E. So she has guaranteed harassment and poke with her E. Her Q is also very good, cheap, cost-efficient poke, very reliable. The E is also very good wave clear early on, and she has really strong ranges. So that's kind of her thing, is she's a point-click, good harassment champion, particularly against other squishy AP type of champions in the bot lane that don't have sustain. So against like Zyra and Brand, Misfortune is still pretty good. Early on, she has that power, but she kind of reaches this mid-game lull after you get your, Sorcerer Boost and you upgrade your gold item. It takes a long time to get to that next item that you want, which is Black Cleaver, typically. Or, you could try to go for like a Ghost Blade or a Dust Blade or something like that. But all those items are too expensive. They're like 2,900 gold, 3,000 gold. That's kind of where Pyke's going to have a problem, is he can't even get Sorcerer Boots early on, right? Like, what's he going to get? He can get, like, Ninja Tabi. I guess he can get, like, Ionian Boots or something for the cooldown reduction, but he's not going to be able to get any boots that are going to significantly increase his damage to help him snowball, because most damage supports have to snowball early because their items are so expensive, right? If you're a Zyra and you have to pay 3,100 gold for your Leandries, or 2,750 or whatever it is for your Rylai's, that's so much more gold than if you're Janna and you're buying Redemption for 2,100, Mikhail's for 2,100, Ardent Sensor for 2,300. And that may not sound like a lot. Well, who cares? What's the difference between 2,300 and 3,100? That's a lot. That's like almost 50% more gold to buy that Leandries, and you fall really far behind. Also, you have to actually hit people to get assists. When you're a shield champion like Janna, if a fight breaks out, you just throw a shield on somebody and you get 5 assists for that fight, so you're going to get a lot of extra gold. Whereas, you know, if you're a damage champion like Zyra, you have to actually hit the person and touch them, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it means that your overall assists are going to be down quite a lot on average when you play a damage champion versus a shield champion. So your economy is going to be less to begin with most of the time. And then also your items are too expensive. Now, some people might say, but that's where your ultimate comes in, right? Where you get the kill gold and you share the gold with other people. It's nice if you get those kills, right? But it's kind of like a catch-22. You need a lot of damage to be able to convert these kills. And in order for you to get that damage, you have to get those kills to get the gold to get the damage items. So it kind of like has this sort of strange paradox about it where it's really hard to finish off those kills unless you already have the items to do so. So that's a big problem, is the itemization is going to be really rough on him. There's just no way around it, right? Like, he's probably going to have to get, like, Ghost Blade, Dust Blade to get enough damage. He is pretty good with Dust Blade because you can turn invisible through your Ghost Water, and whenever you activate Death from Below, then you blink and turn invisible as well. So you can get double, if you time it right, you can get double or sometimes even triple Dust Blade procs, which is very nice. But that's a main issue. The other issue is that right now in this meta, there are a lot of AD high damage champions going around, so everybody's stacking armor, right? Like, almost every team's going to be getting a lot of Ninja Tabi, and if you're playing against anybody who gets any kind of armor, then it's going to be a huge problem. So that's a big issue with an AD assassin support, is that in a meta that's dominated by AD champions, is that you know, they're just already going to have resistances for you, so they're just naturally going to be well suited to combat you. Versus if you play something like Zyra or Brand and you have a 4 AD team, then you're going to be doing a lot of damage because no one's going to get magic resist because you have 4 other AD champions on your team. So in a meta that's dominated by AD champions, it's not a really good idea to play AD supports a lot of the time. Then the final you know, thing that I think is going to hold him back is he has a really cool kit. It's just really terrible for laning. He can't get any more health. He's going to have a hard time getting regen. He's going to get pushed into his tower because he has very little wave clear. And, like, very limited ranges on his abilities. Like, this is kind of like his engage ability where you dash forward and you get a stun. It's only 550 range, and there's no way for him to dash back. So after he goes in, he's going to have a hard time getting back out. So he's pretty much an all-in champion. Has very little opportunities for trading outside of if you hit somebody with a bone skewer, you know, maybe you can do some damage to him. This does, like, no damage, though. Your W. For an assassin to have an ability that does no damage is rough. And this stuff, like, it's okay in terms of the damage, but it's just not really, it's not enough. I don't think, early on. So he does have a really cool kit. I like the invisibility. I like that he can kind of grab people with this, and like, this is pretty cool. So I think he has a really interesting kit. I just feel like they either need to invent an item for AD assassins, or they need to give him some AP ratios in here somewhere so that he can get AP items. Or at the very least, make some of this stuff do, like, AP damage instead of all physical damage. Something like that. So I'll talk about all these things and more in the Pyke video, so go watch it. So he's interesting, he's cool, I'll definitely try him out, but I suspect that he's going to have a pretty low win percentage and that he's not going to be that great most of the time. Now, not only because his kit is sort of hard to play and a lot of people will mess up with him, but just because of those 3 kind of structural issues there, that he has terrible laning, that he doesn't have good itemization, and that the meta really isn't appropriate for him right now. I think those are 3 things that are going to be difficult to fix unless they buff his numbers just insanely high, and if that's the case, he's just going to get played in the mid lane, probably. So it's a real structural problem with how do you have an AD support that's balanced for the support role that's not also going to get picked up and abused in other roles. It's really tough. So we'll see how they try to deal with that. But let's move on to some other people here, because I don't want to spend, you know, all video rehashing something that I already talked about in another video. So be sure to check out that other video if you want more details, like a breakdown of his stats and all that kind of stuff. Okay, Anivia, overall pretty good buff. I mean, the Q is usually what you back second, so having the 2-second early level cooldown is nice, and then having that extra 0.5 ability ratio is nice. But the problem with Anivia is that she's not very good in a skirmisher meta, right? So where everyone's running around with assassins, it's a really high-paced meta. There's just so much damage running around. She takes too long to scale with tier plus rod to really catch up, and that's especially because tier specifically got nerfed really hard a few patches ago. It's been very difficult to manage as Anivia, so she's okay. It's not like she's terrible. She's just not the force that she once was, you know, maybe 4 or 5 patches ago when the meta was a bit slower. So she's okay, but I think there are probably better choices around there most of the time. Okay, Graves really overpowered on this patch. I'd say that Graves and Zen are the 2 most problematic junglers, and this is not going to fix his problem. So yeah, 3 less AD, whatever, early on, and a little bit of extra, 10 seconds extra on his ult. This isn't going to matter. This is not why this dude's overpowered. He's just really, really good against other squishy champions. He just has so much base damage, and he's naturally very tanky without getting any tank items because he gets that free armor off of his True Grit, which I think is his E that comes off of his quick draw, or at least that gives him some True Grit. So anyways, he's just too tanky for free and does too much damage, which is a common theme among a lot of champions that have been very abusive over time, is they're just too tanky for no reason and just do a ton of damage. So they can itemize almost all damage and still be pretty difficult to kill. And that's kind of where Graves is. So, you know, with some of the new itemizations with like the... I don't know if he's going to get the Storm Razor. He probably won't. But either way, this isn't enough. He's still going to be a top-tier jungler on this patch. I don't see anything that's going to displace him. Now, if people start playing maybe like Eve or Elise a lot, and for some reason those champions are a lot stronger than I think they're going to be, then that could be... that could shut him down in the jungle a little bit more, because he doesn't get magic resist anymore off of True Grit. They nerfed that a while ago. So he only gets armor off of it. So if there's ever any AP threats that can challenge him and damage early, then they will definitely have the edge on him. Elise is going to be pretty good, I think, on this patch, or a lot better than she has been. But I just don't know if she's going to be strong enough to combat Graves and Zen. We'll see. So yeah, minor nerf. He'll still be really strong. Kha'Zix, this is a massive nerf. Massive. I don't think anyone's going to play this champion anymore, honestly. Because they are removing his free stealth that he gets in bushes, which is like his permanent stealth. They're lowering the cooldown on his ult, and they're like giving it this extra duration and all this stuff. I don't think it's going to matter. I think he's going to be weaker than Zen, Rengar, and Graves. So I think he's going to be like 4th string, maybe 3rd string AD assassin in the jungle. So I think it's kind of the nail in the coffin, because this was just super abusive by him. And that was really the one thing that separated him from a lot of other AD assassin junglers, is that he got that free perma invisibility in the jungle pretty much. So now that that's gone, I just don't think we're going to see him a lot. Like, you know, you can still do some pretty decent damage. I just think you're going to get outclassed by other champions in the jungle now. Okay. Kindred, nice quality of life changes. You get more marks, so you're going to get your marks 20% faster, which is good, and your first mark spawns a bit faster. The problem is her itemization just got gutted this patch because she had been building crit. It's possible she could do like a Gensu's Blade of the Ruined King kind of build or something. Maybe someone will come up with a build like that for her, but I don't think she has any AP ratios for Gensu's. She has been building a ton of crit, so where is she? Why am I zoning out here? Karma. There we go. Yeah, she doesn't have any AP ratio, so Gensu's probably won't be that good on her. It's possible Essence Reaver could be good on her. Target direction. She gets bonus attack speed, firing 3 homing missiles. I don't think those homing missiles apply on hit. I'm almost positive they don't. So who knows? I mean, maybe she could go something like Essence Reaver. Well, no, she can't go Essence Reaver because you don't want to cast your... Like, she would love having, you know, the timer reset on her abilities, but you don't want to just randomly cast your Respite. It's a really long cooldown, and it's a reactive spell. So, yeah, you can't go Essence Reaver. I don't know. I don't think she's going to be that good. So, yeah, this is a nice buff to her in terms of, you know, the marks, but the itemization, the crit, Apocalypse, is just going to be terrible for her. LeBlanc... I'm not sure how much this is going to affect her. If you're good with LeBlanc, it's probably good. If you're not, this wouldn't be a reason to pick her up and play her. Lee Sin, still going to be bad in this meta, I think. He just has no late game whatsoever. You know, just play Graves, Zen, or Rengar if you want kind of the AD assassin kind of thing. With all of them are a lot more useful later on in the game. Yeah, I mean, this is nice. A little bit of extra energy. It's not going to matter, I don't think. Okay, Rakan gets minor healing nerf. You're going to get 4 less heal in lane. You don't land a lot of these Qs anyways. They're very easy to dodge. You can't throw them around minions. So, you know, if you land like maybe 3 of these per minute even, being generous, then you're going to have like 12 less HP. Whatever, that's not going to matter. Now this is a little bit more significant, losing you know, 10 shield, because remember you can apply this twice. That's 20 shield. So you used to have a total of 300 shield. Now you're going to have 280 when you cast it on 2 different people. That's still really strong compared to something like, you know, Janna, who has 210 shield now, or Lulu, who has 210. The fact that he still is going to have 280 with like a 1.6 ratio, still really good. So I think he's excessively powerful right now. I'm going to talk about him a lot in my support tier list that I'll probably put out tomorrow. But yeah, he'll still be extremely strong, and he's going to be very good with that new Nimbus Cloak rune as well. So I think Rakan will still be amazing. I don't think this is going to change that much about him. Taliyah, this is basically a nail in the coffin for Taliyah, I think. This is just seems really bad. Like, you do get extra movement speed, which is nice. They're giving her some, like, more of like her free mobility with her rock surfing and her base movement speed, so you know that will help her rotate a little bit more. But this right here is a really big deal. You do have less cooldown on it. Did they change it? Hold on. No longer area of effect. Yeah, that's it. So, yeah, so what it used to do is whenever you would hit something, it had a little splash, and that's what gave it the massive, like, wave clear that she had before. So now she basically doesn't have wave clear anymore. Like, these stones only hit single targets. So just think about it as doing, like, a third less damage on her Q now, because if everything's clumped up, it would hit at least 2 nearby minions if you threw it in the middle of a mini wave, and sometimes even more than that. Sometimes you could get it to hit 3 or 4 nearby minions. So yeah, this is basically cutting the wave clear damage of this anywhere from in half if there are 2 minions close to each other to, like, you know, 60% or something if there are 3 minions close to each other, thereabouts. So it's a massive damage reduction. So yeah, they don't take reduced damage from rocks. I mean, I don't know. I'd have to see this in action, but my thought is that this is going to be a lot less wave clear. And now if you cast it on your worked ground, then it's basically free. It costs almost no mana, but you only throw 1 stone. You do have less cooldown on your W, which is nice. The Unraveling does less damage, though. And the Weaver's Wall stays up for a lot less duration, which matters for, like, professionalized play. Doesn't matter as much in solo queue. Taliyah has a lot of strengths that are great in pro play and just okay elsewhere. A lot of that comes from her Q wave clears, bulk card mechanical changes. Yeah, so they're deliberately trying to gut her wave clear, which they're doing with a lot of champions, but that's her whole thing, is push and roam. So now she just doesn't do that as well as she used to, I don't think. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating. Maybe she'll still be all right, but I feel like this is a really big deal. So yeah, that's bad. As far as Urgot, these are just like some weird changes to make it viable in the jungle. So this does like more damage to monsters in the jungle. You can now cast your W while you're casting other abilities, and now you're not rooted. You can move around when you grab somebody with your R. I'm not really sure why Urgot fell out of favor. I think he got nerfed or something at some point. Because he was like really strong when he got reworked. And then he just kind of fell off the grid. I don't really remember like what's up with that. Leg cooldown reduced to 2.5 seconds. So they even gave him like a massive buff on 721. I think. I mean, that looks like a pretty massive buff to me. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a huge buff, so I don't really know, like... Yeah, this was the rework, so he was, like, reworked. And he was really hot for a while, and then... I mean, he was, like, banned for a while almost every game because he was strong. And then he just fell out of the meta, so I really don't know. I never see this champion anymore. I mean, maybe his itemization is just really terrible right now. It seems like... Well, he's ranged, so that... You know, it seems like he could be good with something like Conquer, but because he's ranged, that's pretty bad. Maybe he just doesn't have, like, good runes and good items right now. Maybe that's just it. He's just a victim of runing and itemization. A decent win rate. I mean, I guess you could go with, my wife's, like, playing some kind of flute or something in the other room. Comet. I don't know. I think it's just runes itemization is just really awkward on him right now. So I don't think this is going to change. I still think he'll be pretty awkward. Okay, Viktor, it doesn't matter. Okay, he gets a little bit more damage on his Q. Usually max this, I think, second anyway, so it's not going to help you out early game. And then you get a bit more ability power on Chaos Storm. Now, they did buff him a few patches ago, so he's just too slow. Like, it just takes too long to level up and buy his special item that he has, and it just doesn't do enough early game, and he just can fall really far behind. So I think Viktor's still just going to be terrible on this patch, but who knows? Maybe this will help a little bit. What are his overall stats? The last 7 days. Yeah, he's almost dead last. He's pretty close, like 46% win rate. He's just bad. Like, there's just no reason to play him. He just doesn't have a lot of CC. He doesn't have as much damage as other champions. He's just not good in a skirmisher type of meta. He's just a shadow of his former self. He used to be extremely strong 2 or 3 seasons ago, but they just nerfed the daylights out of him, and he never recovered. I think this is a joke of a nerf. Are you kidding me? Like, he loses an extra third of an AD point per level. You guys think this is the solution? We're toning down his offensive scaling by removing his AD growth by 0.3. Like, are you kidding me? No, this champion is ridiculous. He's so strong right now. Now, the Audacious Charge going from 50% to 30%, maybe that'll make a difference, but I still think he's going to stick to people, especially if he runs Phase Rush, which is what he runs most of the time now. He's extremely popular as far as like challenger games go, and he has a huge win rate. I mean, I guess some people are still running like press the attack on him, but you know, he's gonna stick to people. Like when he comes in, he gets that 30% slow, he gets the you know, Trinity whatever rage proc to get some extra movement speed. He's gonna stay on you. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe this means more than I think, but stickers. Where did you find these stickers, dear?
They're out the craft cabinet.
I see. Is that where you also found the flute or whatever that was?
Where's the recorder? Yes.
So yeah, he's still gonna be overpowered. Really, really strong in the jungle. Good candidate for a ban, I think. Is he like the #1 jungler? Yeah. He's got a 54% win rate with a really high pick rate and ban rate. And then Graves is also, like, these two are just ridiculous, especially Zen, but they're both really bad. Everything else is, like, okay. I think Warwick has been sort of balanced into a decent state at this point. And most of these other champions are, like, you know, doable. They're manageable. Shaco's still, like, okay. He's on the strong side, too, but he's alright. Udyr has emerged as, like, an okay, you know, champion in the jungle as well. But yeah, it's these two are squeezing everyone else out of the jungle. They're just, both of them are just ridiculously powerful. And I think that I don't see anything that's going to change that. You get a little bit of extra duration by 0.25. No, like, increase her safety. Like, give her some more movement speed or, you know, something like that, I feel like. So, you know, I don't think this is going to fix her problems. She's still going to be really good at, like, gold and lower, but once you start to get to platinum and higher, I think she's just going to get outscaled. Now, if they do end up nerfing the healing and shielding like they're saying they're going to do in a couple of patches, that's what will buff her up a lot. But right now, she just kind of gets outscaled by enchanter supports at higher levels of play, like Platinum Plus, but she's still pretty good overall. Alright, how are we looking on time here? Doing pretty well. We're doing pretty well. Okay, as far as this goes, so I'm not going to read all of these. Basically, it's attack power down, armor down, and then health scaling is a little bit better. So, weaker in the early game, stronger in the late game. The problem is, most AD carries right now, even before this patch, are bad. Like, especially in the early game. And early game is so important right now. Because, like, what ends up happening is the junglers will pick something like Graves or Zen, very early game. They will get the scuttle. They'll go, like, red scuttle or blue scuttle, whatever, plus scuttle, and then they're just going to sit on bottom and just camp it. Like, all game. And then a lot of mid laners, it's becoming increasingly popular, even pre-6, for people just to roam down bottom at level 4 and just, like, 4-man dive bottom. And just a lot of the AD carries just can't handle that. It's just so much camping, and it takes so long to get your items going as AD carry, especially if you're a crit user. It just feels like it takes forever to get Infinity Edge plus your first seal item. So I already thought that AD carries were probably one of the weakest classes of champion, with a couple of exceptions, right? So if you get a really fed Kai'Sa or you get a really fed Twitch or something like that, then you can take over the game. But I feel like a lot of games on patch 8.10 are really defined by the mid laner and the jungler. It just depends. Does your jungler get either Zen or Graves? Does your mid laner play some kind of assassin and get ahead? I feel like those are the largest determining factors for how you're going to win the game. So I feel like very, very rarely in my games did it come down to the AD carry outperforming everyone else on the team. Occasionally it'll happen, but... So that means that I don't really think they should have nerfed AD carry. So this is clearly a nerf. It's a massive nerf to AD carry, not just these stat changes. Let's see what they are saying here. Let's read this. The dominant strategy in bot lane has over time become sustaining through the laning phase. Hey, thanks for the sub also. I don't have that open right now. Let me see. Thank you, Daniel. Between health regen and fleet footwork, it's pretty hard to put the hurt on marksmen in a way they can't just passively recover from. I do agree with that. I think there's too much sustain in lane, and it's just too difficult to meaningfully push people out of lane. This means aggressive bot laners, whether early game bully marksmen or supports who want to poke or go all in, feel like they have no home. True, to an extent. But, well, we'll read the rest of what they have here. Weakening marksman sustained, free health regen, fleet footwork below means damage will stick, making 2v2 fighting a more successful prospect for the stronger lane. Shifting some durability and armor and blah blah blah. Draven and Lucian shine a bit harder in the early game. Well, that's true. Those two are going to be a lot better. So I think that all of this is true. And this is why I said Nami is going to be a lot stronger, because she is someone who's excels at this early game trading, and she's someone who has a really good heal as well, and she's pretty good at the overall skirmish, and so I think this will make her even better, and she's already one of the best supports. Okay, so that's true. So I do think these changes will diversify the AD carry role. So that's important to keep in mind. Okay, so all of that makes sense. So I agree with that. Nerf fleet footwork. You know, you can lower some of these stats early on. Finally, we're nerfing marksman base attack damage by 4 and pushing that damage to their growth stat. Okay, blah, blah, blah. So they're not talking about crit here. Where do they talk about crit? Okay. Anyways, I guess they don't have a full paragraph about crit. But, like, so this is going to accomplish some of the goals they want. It's going to diversify the marksman position in terms of allowing champions like Lucian and Draven to compete in lane with champions like Jinx and Caitlyn. But overall, it's weakening the AD carry as a whole, as a position. So they're not making Draven and Lucian like insanely more powerful than they already were. They're just making all of the critical strike champions borderline unplayable. So it's like they're just lowering the AD carry, all of them, a lot, in order to increase diversity. So I would like to see them nerf the jungle a lot more than they have to make up for this. Because right now, it just feels like I said, it just feels like which jungler camps bottom, and that's going to be it. So I really wish they would make the jungle camps take a lot longer to clear and be more meaningful. Like, they try to do that kind of with the experience, trying to say, okay, well, you need to clear a lot more camps to gain more experience. But really, that hasn't changed that much in terms of when people gank and how effective they are. Because usually the jungler will still show up in your lane. I think what they need to do is just, like, make the sharing bonus a lot higher. That would help out a lot, to make it to where AD carry and especially support are somewhere closer to the level of the jungler, and like within reason of the level of the mid laner and the top laner. Because in the mid game, it's not that unusual for like the mid laner to be 3, sometimes even 4 levels over the support, and you just have no prayer. Like, if they come running at you, you're just gonna lose. And so I think that like the support item, when you upgrade it, should allow you to gain more experience somehow, either by clearing wards, or you get like more shared experience when you're around people, just something to help you level up. That would make you feel a lot less helpless in the bot lane. Because right now, when the jungler comes rolling up, you know, with their red buff, and they just, killed Scuttle or whatever, and they're level 3 and you're level 2 bot lane, it just feels like it's very difficult to deal with that. So anyways, so yes, I do agree that it will help diversity. That's good, but it doesn't solve the problem that bot lane, specifically AD carries, are very, very weak right now, I think, compared to the jungler and the mid laner. So, and that wasn't true 5 patches ago. You know, back in the tank meta, AD carries were really strong because the AD carries had to be strong to kill the tanks, because nobody else could really kill the tanks. And so when you had teams that would just run like 3 tanks and an AD carry and like some kind of, maybe 1 bruiser or something, then AD carries were a lot more powerful. But now that everybody's running assassins and super high damage, and you're highly incentivized just to camp bottom with a high damage jungler, then AD carries just can't get their items fast enough to keep up with that, and they're just too vulnerable most of the time. So that's the issue, is this was true. AD carries were too strong maybe 5 patches ago, but I don't think, since the tanks have fallen out of favor so much, I just don't think that's the case anymore. Okay, so as far as items go, like I said, I talked about this primarily in my AD carry video, so go back and watch that. But the TLDR that I said earlier is that anything that has critical strike is going to be really bad, I think, on this patch. And a few reasons for that. So number one, these items got an astronomical increase in price. 300 gold is a lot. That is a lot of gold. Like, certain entire metas have shifted because of like a 200 gold change in an item. If you remember Blade the Ruined King, they increased the cost of it by like 200 last spring, and that was one of the major contributing factors to why it fell out of favor. And Infinity Edge got a cost reduction of 200, went from 3,600 to 3,400. And then Blade of the Ruined King got a cost increase of like from 3,200 to 3,400, and that was it. Nobody ever rushes Blade of the Ruined King anymore. Now, there were a couple of other things that sort of, came about while that was going on, but that was the major reason, is the cost increase. So if you look at this, you know, that's like an 11% increase in cost. And this may not sound like a lot, like, oh, it's 300 gold. That's a lot. I mean, that's like an extra probably 2 minion waves at least, maybe more than that. I mean, if you think a minion wave without cannon, I don't remember how much each minion on average is worth. Let's say it's worth like 16. You know, you're getting about 100 gold or so per wave. If you get the cannon minion, you know, you might get an extra 50 or so. So it's going to be over 2 waves, right? And that's perfect CS. Most people, you know, are only going to hit, in most elos, are only going to hit like half of their CS. So most people are only going to have like somewhere between 50 to 60 CS at 10 minutes. A lot of times. So, you know, this is really closer to probably like, maybe we could be generous and say if there's an available 96 gold, that people might get 60 of that, you know, on average. And then if you hit the cannon minion, that'll give you an extra 50 every other wave. So times 2 plus 50. So that's every 2 waves, you'd get like 170 gold. And so basically it's going to take you an extra like 2 minutes, minute and a half to 2 minutes. And at lower elos, it might even take like up to 3 minutes longer to get your rapid fire cannon to complete it. So keep that in mind. So in a game where, you know, in a meta, I should say, where games are ending, you know, oftentimes around like 25 minutes, it's a very fast meta right now. You know, waiting an extra 2 or 3 minutes for just one item purchase is a very big deal. So that's pretty gross. And I don't think that people are going to buy this anymore. Especially because it's not only the top end is more expensive, but every single step in the process is more expensive. This is 50% more gold to get your Brawler's Gloves. Like, you have to wait an additional, you know, minute and a half just to even get your Brawler's Gloves. So it's more expensive at the base level. It's more expensive at the intermediary level with Zeal. And it's more expensive at the final level. So you're just kind of getting screwed at all levels of your item progression if you want to get crit. That's just one crit item. If you want to get both of these, you know, that's 600 extra gold. So now you're looking at 6 minutes, 5 or 6 minutes of delayed cost. And then if you want your Infinity Edge, that's another 300 gold. So now, you know, you're looking at like somewhere between 7 to 9 minutes to complete your power spike in a 25-minute game. You know, if we think a lot of games are 25 minutes, it's taking 36% more time to complete your build. You're not even going to have it. Like, you're not going to have Infinity Edge plus 2 Zeal items in that amount of time. It's just not going to happen. Because if you think that, you know, every minute, what did we say? It was like you're going to get 150 gold every minute. If you think of like one of these items now, it's going to be 20 minutes of just farming. Every time you kill somebody, that basically gives you 2-minute reduction. So that's just to create one of these Zeal items would take you about 19 minutes of farming. What? Like, that's so much? It's going to take you 19 minutes of farming now to complete one of these items. Now, let's say that you get like 3 kills. You know, each kill is going to give you like an extra 2 minutes. So, minus 6. That's still going to take you 13 minutes. So, if you get 3 kills, you know, in your first 13 minutes, then you're going to be able to complete one of these. So, that means you might be able to complete 2 Zeal items. If this is going on, right? If you have 6 kills by 26 minutes, then you might be able to complete 2 of your Zeal items. So you might be able to get your Rapid Fire Cannon plus your Static Shiv. But now you don't even have Infinity Edge. You want to get that bad boy, that's going to take you even longer. You know, so even if you have like 9 kills, it costs more than this. But even if you have 9 kills, it's going to take you like 40 minutes. And it's going to take you an extra 800 gold somewhere in there. So you're going to have like 11 kills thereabouts. Now, that doesn't include global gold and assists and all of that kind of stuff. So you are going to get some global gold. You're going to get some assists. But the bottom line here is you're not going to be able to get unless you're just like massively fed, like more than 11 kills, you're not going to be able to get all 3 of these items in under 30 minutes most of the time, almost certainly, because you're going to have to buy other stuff too. You're going to have to buy like tier 2 boots. You're going to have to buy, you know, some control wards. So you're not getting all 3 of these anytime soon. You know, it's going to be probably 35 to 40 minutes before you get all 3 of these items, and that's 10 minutes longer than most games last. So that's just ridiculous. So they just absolutely nerf the daylights out of crit champions. So I think anything that relies on crit is going to be gutted, absolutely gutted, with the exception of possibly Yasuo might be able to, you know, still be viable if he wants to go crit, but because he gets the double crit bonus. But and there's not even any extra stats. They don't give you any compensatory stats on this, like no extra attack speed, nothing. You just get completely screwed over here. So yeah, to basically get 2 of these items, that extra 600 gold is an extra, like 8 minutes worth of time that it's going to take you to get that in the game through farming. So that's really, really bad. And then speaking of Infinity Edge itself, this change is really bad. So yeah, I mean, this is gold neutral, so they're giving you an extra 10 attack damage, which is equal to 350 gold. So you are netting a 50 gold efficiency here. It's at a much higher cost, but it is more efficient. The doubling the critical strike chance is going to make this a little bit better if you get its second item. So it used to have 20% crit on it, and now if you get something like a rapid fire cannon or whatever, it's going to have 30% crit on it. So now this is basically going to give you 30 crit instead of 20 crit. So that's nice. You know, at the 2-item power spike, you are going to get an extra 10% crit. So overall, in terms of the gold efficiency of that, this is much more gold efficient because you get 50 just off of the base with this. And if you get it as a second item, then you're actually getting 10% more crit, which is, you know, really valuable. I think crit is now valued at 60 a pop. So you get an extra 600 gold worth of value there, so that's good. But this 15% critical strike damage converted to true damage is really, really bad compared to what it used to be. Because think about, you used to get 50% bonus critical damage. So let's say that someone's dealing like 100, you know, crit damage, right? So if someone's dealing 100 crit damage, getting 50% more would be 50 damage. If it's converting that 15% critical strike damage, then it's only going to be 15 damage. And that's if it all does true damage. So let's look at it in terms of armor. Let's say if someone has 100 armor, what would that be? Okay, so to calculate armor, you do 100 plus the armor value, and that'll give you your percentage. So 100 plus 100. Oh, it's 100 divided by 100 plus the armor. So 100 divided by 100 plus 100 is 200. So divided by 200, it's going to be 50%. Okay? So if someone has 100 armor, that's going to reduce this to dealing an extra 25 damage. So if you would have done 100 extra crit damage, now it's going to only do 25 crit damage. But that's still more than this, right? Because this would do 15% crit damage. Well, what if you had 200 armor? Okay, so if you do 100 divided by 300, that's 0.333. So you do that times 50, and that is 16.6 damage you would do. So even if someone has 200 armor, this is still less damage than it would have been off of that conversion. Now, especially against really squishy targets, it's going to be a lot less damage. So, overall, this is way, way, way less damage than the old 50% crit modifier, particularly against squishy champions. It's only once you go over 200 armor that it might start doing a little bit of extra damage. But, you know, do keep in mind that when you complete 3 critical items, right, when you get your, you know, rapid fire cannon, static shiv, infinity edge, that used to only give you 80 crit, 30 for the 2 zeal items each, that's 60, and then 20 from the infinity edge. Now you're going to get that extra 20% because you're going to go up to 60, and then that's going to double, and that's going to give you 120%. You can't go over 100%. So it's going to be 100%. So you get an extra 20 critical strike, and critical strike, I believe, used to be worth... I think it used to be worth... what is... Oh, here we go. Brawler gloves. Yeah, it's 60. It used to be worth 40. So it used to be an extra 800 gold worth of value, and you got an extra 20% crit. Now it's even more than that. Now it's worth 1,200 gold value. So you're getting an extra, like, 1,250 gold value off of Infinity Edge at 3 items. So, in terms of raw gold value, yeah, it's good. But in terms of, like, actual damage conversion, it's just not worth it. It's just not worth it. So once you get to those 3 items, once you pay 900 gold to get all 3 of those items, all of those extra Zeal items, it's going to be so much later in the game that it's just not going to matter. So yes, is this stronger when you complete all 3 items? Yes, it is. Is it marginally better at 2 items? Maybe. You get 10% more crit, but you're losing a lot of damage off of this because you're getting the 15% of this instead of the 50% bonus crit. So I would say it's probably weaker at 2 items. So if you go something like Hurricane plus Infinity Edge on Twitch or something like that, I think it's going to be a lot weaker. But at 3 items, it's probably stronger. Even though this conversion is weaker, you're getting an extra 20% crit. It might still be weaker against squishy targets. I don't know. I'm not going to do all the math here right now for that, because you're basically losing 35 damage if someone has no armor. You're losing 35% damage, and you're gaining 20%. I mean, I guess I could look at that. What would it take to take this down to 20%? It'd be like 100 divided by 250.4. So that's if someone has 150 armor. 20. Okay, that's perfect. So you're dealing... You would only deal 20 damage here. So you're gaining... So you're basically gaining 20% damage because you're getting 20% extra critical strike chance, which is effectively 20% extra damage off of this. So we need to get to 35.35. Say 150, so if they have 50 armor, it's 0.66 times 50. It's not the exact number, but it's close. So, yeah, against a 50 armor target, getting that 20% extra damage is worth. So, it's probably, it's more damage. I think it would be more damage if it's when you have 3 items, even against squishy targets with the true damage. But once again, that's coming at a much, much higher cost of 900 gold. So, you know, the moral of the story is, yes, at 3 items, it is probably a little bit stronger, but you're paying an exorbitant cost to get that. So, I think the TLDR is that I just think that Critical Strike champions are going to be garbage early on. And I just don't think you'll get it later on. I think you're going to get run over by other... champions that are going to have much faster builds. So how that ends up showing up in my 80 carry tier list is that, you know, all of the crit strike the Caitlyn, the Jinxes, those are going to be, particularly Caitlyn, Jinx, Trist, and Vayne, are all going to be way, way, way lower. Because they're just not going to be able to keep up with champions that can go Essence Reaver or Blade the Ruined King early, or Draven's kind of a special case that I talk about. But all of these champions are going to be just a lot stronger overall there. So I think that that's terrible news. Now, as far as Essence Reaver, this is really just a bizarre item. They have this and Nimbus Cloak are both really weird in that they're both heavily dependent and heavily favored champions that have a hard engage ultimate. So... You know, if you have somebody or that like has an ultimate that's on a low cooldown that you can use proactively, I should say. So something that you don't want to use reactively, then it's going to make them a lot stronger. So some of the best cases for this would be Kai'Sa is one of the best, low cooldown, and you know you can use it right away in a fight if you want to get the immediate bonus. So whenever you get this 3,200 gold bonus, and this is kind of confusing here, I'll just pull it up over here so you can actually see what the real stats are. So if you look at the real stats here, it's 3,400 gold value just at the face of it without even activating the passive. And then when you activate the passive, then you get that 30% attack speed, takes it to 4153 gold values. That's 130% effectively. And that doesn't include the on-hit mana regen, and that doesn't include the basic attacks refund 20% of your remaining non-ultimate cooldowns. So the kind of champion you want this on, once again, is someone who has a low cooldown ult that you can use proactively near the beginning of a fight. And ideally someone who has some mid-range cooldowns, so cooldowns that are somewhere between like maybe 8 to 15 seconds that are really high impact, so that you get the most out of this, 20% reduction every time you cast it, or every time you auto attack. So those are some really weird things. Now, Sapphire Crystal is a little strange. It's only 350 gold value, so even if you say the mana doesn't matter, you could just take the Sapphire Crystal out of the equation and it would still be very, very cost efficient. So I think this is going to be one of the most powerful items in the game on the very select few champions that can use it appropriately. So Kai'Sa's one of them. She has low cooldown ult, very high impact with her supercharger, her missiles, and her W are all very good high damage abilities that she can use in a fight, and she really benefits very heavily from having flat AD. She has huge AD ratios, and she benefits very heavily from her attack speed because her E, I'll just pull her up. Her E lowers the, or your auto attacks lower the cooldown on her E even more. So her auto attacks are going to lower the cooldown anyways because of Essence Reaver, and it also lowers the cooldown of this. So that extra attack speed is going to double lower. It's going to have two different effects that lower the cooldown on Supercharger. And all of that extra attack speed also helps her trigger her passive for even more damage. And she gets a lot of bonus attack speed built into this ability, so that means you're going to get more attacks with Essence Reaver to lower the cooldown even more. So she just has a lot of these synergies with that item. So I think it's going to be just absolutely nuts on her. And I said that she would probably go Essence Reaver, Gensu's Gnasher's Tooth, in some kind of order there. She might go Gnasher's before Essence Reaver. That would give her 40% CDR, which would have a lot of synergy with her other abilities. But Gensu's is very nice on her. So I think she'll get Essence Reaver somewhere in her kit, and she'll be very strong for it. So it's very good on her. Lucian is another person, very similar. His double hits, each one of those attacks on his double attack will, I believe, will trigger the Essence Reaver so that you get even more cooldown, 20% per one of his double shots, which is going to lower the cooldown on his abilities, allow him to cast those abilities to trigger even more double shots to lower even more abilities. So that's going to be really, really strong. Now, typically you don't cast your ult immediately as Lucian in a fight, but you could, in theory, if you wanted to. You could start off with a Culling and just try to chip people down a little bit, trigger the Essence Reaver, and then go in for the kill. Whenever you cast Culling, also, if you get Nimbus Cloak, which I think could be really good on Lucian, you get Nimbus Cloak as a secondary, it's going to give you that extra 100 movement speed, so you can definitely chase people down and get right in their face with that ultimate, if you want to. So I think that makes Lucian extremely powerful, too. Other champions that could use this pretty well, particularly in the AD carry role, would be someone like Zyra. Now, she definitely doesn't have an ult that you want to cast right away, but when you do cast it, then having that extra 30% attack speed and the cooldown reduction is going to be very strong on her, because that's going to let her get even more feathers on the ground and then get this huge like blade collar at the end. So I think that she could potentially be pretty strong with that as well. Sivir could be pretty good with it. She has a very very proactive ultimate. You can just press R, run your team in, and then just start attacking with Essence Reaver, which will allow you to throw more boomerangs, more ricochets. And so overall, she could be pretty strong with that item as well. It's just a secondary item is really awkward on Sivir, which is why she was a bit lower on my tier list. It's because, yeah, Essence Reaver's great, but what else do you get? You know? If you're Kai'Sa, then you can get Gensu's, which is really, really strong. And if you're Lucian, you can get Blade of the Ruined King, which has historically always been really good on Lucian because each one of those double shots triggers a Blade of the Ruined King for the healing and the percentage damage dealing. So Lucian's really, really good. And the fact that he also goes press the attack will increase the damage off of the Blade of the Ruined King on hit passive, which is pretty disgusting. And then you also have Black Cleaver, which is really good on Lucian as well because you can shred a lot of their armor with the ultimate. So you can kick it off with your ultimate, Nimbus Cloak, shred all their armor off, and then run in with the Essence Reaver and clean them up once they have, you know, minus 30% armor or whatever. What's up, dear? Aw.
I kept this save the date longer than their marriage lasted.
Nice. Yeah, some of my friends, unfortunately, got divorced earlier this year, and my wife found a save the date card from their wedding that was several years ago. So it's a sad story. Anyways, they're both still doing fine. I think they just didn't work out well together in the end. But anyways, so I think they're real beneficiaries of Essence Reaver. Draven and Twitch, I don't think will get it. Twitch is an interesting case. The problem is, like, I mean, you do use his ult proactively. It's just there's not a lot of stuff you want to cast with Twitch. Like, you already get a reset on your Qs. That doesn't matter. Your little potion that you throw, your W doesn't matter. Your E, you could contaminate twice in a fight, which is very appealing. You know, but usually you kill them before you would contaminate twice anyways. So I just don't feel like he has enough strong abilities to warrant the Essence Reaver. I think you'd be better off just going something like Blade of the Ruined King, Hurricane, kind of build. Maybe Gensu's to go with that. I don't know. He doesn't have AP ratios. It's always weird to go Gensu's on a champion that doesn't have any AP ratios, but anyways, I don't think that's going to work. You could go Essence Reaver on someone like Ezreal if you wanted to. I mean, it's a cool idea. I just don't know what you take out to build it. Because that would let you zip around and cast more E's and Q's, and it has a lot of synergy. I mean, maybe we'll see it on Ezreal. Maybe someone will go like Manamune, Trinity, Essence Reaver. I could see it. You'd have to cast your ult at the start of a fight, which isn't usually a problem. But you could cast your ult at the start of a fight and then zip in. But, like, would you want to do that over going Archangels as your third item or Blade of the Ruined King as your third item? Lucian has a lot of choices. Or, not Lucian. Ezreal has a lot of choices in his itemization, so I don't know. Varus is another one that it could be pretty good on. Obviously, you have a proactive ult. His abilities aren't amazing to cast a lot. I mean, I guess you could trigger your Blight passive twice or a few times by casting. You could cast your arrow once, and then you could cast the little circle thing a couple of times if you wanted to. So it's like it's okay on him. He'll probably get it. I mean, you could go a similar build to Kai'Sa where you could just go something like Essence, Gensu's, Nashor's, or something to be pretty good on Varus. So there are a few different champions. One champion that's kind of a disappointment is like Jhin. In theory, it would be really good on Jhin. You'd get more bouncing grenades. You'd get more W's. And that could be really strong in fights. But you really don't want to cast Jhin's ult just randomly when a fight's starting. Or if you do, you want to be really long range, which means you're not going to be able to get in range probably to take advantage of the Essence Reaver after that. And you don't benefit as much from the attack speed either. So, you know, that's a little awkward. But yeah, I do talk about this, you know, in that video, so just watch the video if you want more details. But basically, I think Essence Reaver is going to be a powerhouse item, although only a handful of champions are going to be able to use it. Now, the last Whisper buffs, I had someone comment on my 80 carry video. They're like, but what about Last Whisper, Lord Dominic's? Isn't this going to be a lot stronger? Sort of. Okay, so it's going to cost 200 more gold, and you're losing 10 attack damage. So that's basically making it, it's going to cost you 550 more effective gold, because 10 attack damage is worth 350 gold. So 550 extra gold on a 2600 item means it costs like 20% more, a little bit less than 20% more to buy this. And this item right here is going to be trash. 10% total versus 35% bonus is really, really bad, especially against squishy targets, I think. Well, maybe not squishy, because you're getting 10%. If they have absolutely no armor, I mean, even if they just have something like a cloth armor, which is going to have 20 armor, then 35% of that bonus is 7, and 10% would only be 2. Well, let's say they get a cloth armor and their total armor would only be like probably 60, so you'd get 20 plus like maybe 40 base on something like an 80 carry early on. Even then, you know, 60 times 0.1 is 6. So I think if you put even if you put a cloth armor on a squishy, just a really basic cloth armor, like they're trying to build in a Ninja Tabi or something, or Tabby, it still is going to be worse. So, and if you have more armor than that, if you have any more armor than even a cloth armor, then it's definitely not going to be worth it. So I think this is a pretty big nerf to the Last Whisper component, especially against tanks. And then this is nice, like going from 35 pin to 35% total, or 35% bonus to 35% total, is going to be very good, particularly against squishies. But once again, it's very expensive and you're losing the AD, so you're paying 550 gold for this conversion. I don't know at what point that would be worth it. I'm not going to do the math right here because I don't want this video to be like 2 hours long to do math for every single one of these items, but I feel like that's neutral. Like this, the biggest beneficiary of this will be assassins that are just like super rich and are already really fed, and this is like the 4th or 5th item that they get. But at that point, they're probably already winning the game really hard anyways. So, I'm skeptical. Like, this could be really good, like, really later on in the game. Like, as a 4th or a 5th item, it'll still be good. But I don't think we're going to see it that often in a lot of games. You know, unless it goes to super late. They also took away the extra damage that you do against champions with more max health, so that's something to definitely consider also. So you're basically losing 550 gold worth of stats here, and you're losing an extra, you know, 20% bonus damage here. If anything, I feel like it's just neutral. It's about the same as it is now. Except it's way worse in this intermediary phase when you're just getting the Last Whisper, I think. Mortal Reminders, same deal. You're paying 550 gold more. And it's only 25% armor pen instead of 35%. So, yeah, I feel like this is either a nerf or it's neutral. This is definitely a nerf to the miniature component Last Whisper, and I feel like this is probably a nerf to Lord Dominic's, unless it's like 6th item or something, like really late in the game when people have a ton of armor. The tanks have a ton of like base armor off of their levels. Like maybe this would be worth, but I'm very suspicious of that change. Okay, we talked about the crit items. Blade of the Rune King is actually going to be a lot better of a rush item on several champions now. Most notably Twitch. I think he can go Blade of the Rune King Hurricane now. Like, Hurricane is going to cost the 300 more gold. There's no way around that, but that's just so good with Blade of the Rune King that I think you just kind of have to build that. You might be able to force something like this on like Blade Hurricane on like Jinx or something like that, but I feel like it's going to be pretty bad on her. But this would be really good on Twitch, potentially. That'll be kind of his new build, I think. What did I have as his 3rd item when I did this? I can't even remember yesterday. Oh, Stormrazor. Yeah, we'll talk about Stormrazor here really quickly. So yeah, I think Twitch could get it. In theory, someone like Varus could get it. It's a good, like, attack speed item. I think I had it on Zyra also. Or did I not? Yeah. Essence Reaver, Ruin King, Black Cleaver on Zyra, maybe. So there will be a few people that will like that. Obviously, Lucian will like the lower cost. Twitch. So Lucian and Twitch will be the biggest beneficiaries of that. because it's just a really good, especially if you have a special interaction like Lucian and Twitch do, because with Twitch his ultimate applies it to each person hit by his bolt, so it can apply it to a whole team for the extra damage. And then and he's really good with Hurricane, and he wants Hurricane because the Hurricane bolts all apply poison, so each Hurricane bolt off of Twitch applies both poison and Blather and King, and that's a really classic combination with him. So I think that'll be kind of the default build again with him. And then Lucian, of course, his double shots, like we talked about before, proc the Blather and King. So I think that that's something that he'd be interested in as well. So the 200 less gold cost will be really nice on him. Zyra is just kind of wacky. Like her feathers passing through multiple targets do not apply the Blather and King. I looked that up. Twitch's applies it because it specifically says it applies it in the tooltip, but it does not apply to Zyra. So that's unfortunate there in terms of, probably not unfortunate. She'd probably be pretty overpowered if her feathers applied it. But that's just one of those cases where you're not going at any sort of like critical item on her, which feels really weird on Zyra because she likes the crit because of her E, but it's just too expensive to be viable anymore, I think. So if you're going Essence Reaver, you need an attack speed item, and I feel like that's what it's going to be on a lot of champions that don't, that really can't use Gensu's very well, the Gensu's Nashor's package, and they don't want to get crit. So Blather and King is just kind of your next best choice because it gives you attack speed plus AD plus a nice on-hit effect. The other choice would be Stormrazor, to bring up here, which is really designed for people that just want to burst someone out like right away, almost like an AD champion that's also an assassin, but doesn't want to get something like Dustblade. So it gives you the 70 attack damage and 30% attack speed, which is cost efficient. It's exactly 3,200 gold in cost efficiency. And if you haven't attacked in the last 3 seconds and you attack, your first attack is automatically going to critical strike for 160% damage. So this is very good. I have it on Twitch as someone, because he can turn invisible and reposition in a fight every time he kills somebody, potentially. And so you could use this 2, maybe even 3 times in a fight. Then every time you sneak up on someone, it'll give you that immediate edge too, to give you that big crit right off the bat. So yeah, it's just a nice efficient item, and it allows you to get that first hit of burst out. So I don't think in many cases it'll be better than Essence Reaver on a lot of champions, but on champions that just want to burst right off the bat, you might see this on someone like a could be pretty good on Draven actually. I don't remember if I put it on Draven or not, because Draven does want to get that first really huge hit with Triumph. So instead of going Blather and King, he could go Stormrazor. I think I might just go ahead and change that here. Now that I'm thinking about it, I think that could be pretty good. So that would give you that first really big burst. I mean, it's possible he could even rush Stormrazor, but, you know, healing is so good on him. Blather and King is, like, okay if you want the triple sustain, but now that I'm talking about it, I think I like the Stormrazor a lot more there. Just because you're going to have Conquer with Lucian, you really want to get that burst damage. So yeah, I think it'll be good on like a select few champions, but I don't think we're going to see it all over the place. I don't think it's as overpowered, potentially, as Essence Reaver is. I don't think there's as many abuse cases. But on a champion that doesn't want to go critical strike, that just wants attack speed plus attack damage, and they just want to have that upfront burst, then that could be a pretty good option there. So Twitch because he can reset with the invisibility, and then Draven because he really wants to end the fight quickly within 4 seconds because he's going to take Conquer. And he can't reset the Conquer duration, so he has to kill him within 4 seconds. Okay, so I think you'll see this sometimes, but it'll be a little bit more rare among top-level champs. Now, another use for this could be something like a Caitlyn, because she has really long range and she likes to siege. Now, this says if you haven't attacked, though. Not if you haven't attacked an enemy champion. So I was thinking, like, if you were sieging, you know, and you're attacking a tower, and then you attack a champion once every, you know, 3 seconds, then maybe you could do it. But it looks like even attacking a tower will turn this off. Yeah, looking at you, Jin, I did have this on Jin as well. It could be a pretty decent item on Jin. You know, if you go something like Ghostblade, Dustblade, and then Stormrazor, I think is what I had on Jin. But yeah, it may not be. I was thinking like maybe Caitlyn for sieges might like this, but it's looking a little less likely because with Caitlyn you're always going to be attacking something probably, whether it's minions or towers or champions. So probably not. I think that covers most of the AD changes. Bloodthirster is still not going to be that great. 3,500 is just too much. I think that if you want that type of effect, I still think that Death's Dance is a better option. It's the same amount of AD. The lifesteal is maybe marginally less, but getting that extra 10% CDR is really nice, and having that damage deferral is really nice as well. So, I don't know. I mean, we might see Bloodthirster a little bit more. Like, Draven would be the person to rush Bloodthirster, but you might see it on, like, third item on like Twitch or Zyra, maybe, if you want to go double lifesteal. You could see it. You could see it some. We'll have to see how it pans out. But if you do see it, a lot of times it would only be first item on Draven, and then maybe as like a third situational item on other AD carries. After you already have your core item and then some kind of attack speed item, you might get that as a final one. Mob Mortius, it's a little more valuable. You know, you get an extra free 5 magic resist, which is like 90 gold worth of value, and then you get some extra shield value here. It's okay. I still don't expect to see this a lot of the time. Guardian Angel. I thought this was going to be a really good buff, but it's actually a pretty big nerf. Like, on the PBE, when I was talking about this yesterday, when I was doing the 80 carry video, it was also giving, I think, 10 more attack damage. But they took that off. So now you're only getting 10 more armor, which is only 200 gold worth of value, and it's charging you 400 more gold for that. So that's really awkward. So you're basically losing, you know, 200 gold worth of value on this. In addition to it just flat out costing more gold. So that's pretty bad. It does allow you to rush a chain vest if you feel like you really need that, which is a decent response to, you know, 80 assassins out there, but I think you're paying too much of a cost for it, probably. The lifesteal and, you know, just other utility on some of these items should be able to help protect you enough to where you can still keep getting offense. Okay, I think this is a pretty big nerf to Banner of Command. I'll have to see how the minions actually interact, but losing that 10% CDR is a big deal, especially for supports. That's a 260 gold value, and really that's an undervalued stat. Like, supports desperately need CDR, so this is really bad. And you want to like rush this item usually early on if you're going to get it at all, because you get the extra gold off of your banner minion killing other minions in the lane. So it's basically a gold generation item of sorts. And that means you'll be doing without CDR early on, which is really bad. And they're making it to where like it does get 70% damage reduction from champs, but I mean, that's okay. A lot of times you just put this thing in a side lane anyways and just have it push. And if, you know, someone goes up to it, then, you know, as a support, you're not going to contest it. They're just going to clear it anyways. So, I don't know. I think if they wanted to do this, I would just make it like a 1 minute cooldown or something. Or at least a minute and a half instead of 2 minutes. I don't think we'll see it. I don't think this item's that good anymore. Like, this item, when I was recommending it back in the day, it was because you could take it when you went Ingenious Hunter and Zombie Ward. But now that they've nerfed Zombie Ward repeatedly, and Ingenious Hunter is just a lot less enticing than it used to be because of bone plating, kind of forces you to go into Resolve secondary on most supports, then this is just a lot less attractive. When you have the, you know, 40% cooldown reduction on it, it's a lot more valuable. Because people are asking me, why don't I go banner anymore on Rakan? Why don't I go banner on a lot of these other champions? It's because I'm not going Ingenious anymore because of what I just said. They introduced bone plating, which makes Resolve almost necessary because you need bone plating in Chrysalis, especially in this early game meta where people are just camping your lane and trying to kill you all the time. And thus you can't take Ingenious Hunter, and because you don't have the 40% CDR, then it makes banner a lot less attractive. So that's kind of the reasoning there. But yeah, I don't see this being that much more useful than it already is, which is to say not very useful on most champs right now, unfortunately. It's a very cool item. I like it. I like macro-oriented items, but I just think that one's in the penalty box for now, especially after losing the CDR. Shurelya's Reverie. This is a pretty massive nerf to this item. You are losing movement speed on it. I don't know how much movement speed. I think it's like 20 gold or so in efficiency on movement speed. You are gaining, I think these are like net neutral. Because the 100% base mana regen is about 500 gold worth of value. And then you're getting an extra 150 gold here. You're losing the 3 movement speed. So this is probably roughly neutral in terms of gold. But the problem is, like, this extra 30 seconds here, turning it to 90 seconds is a really big deal. So, like, you might see this on some champions still that really like it. Like, maybe Rakan still gets this. But it's going to be a lot more, like, conditional. You know, you really need to have a comp that can utilize Shurelya's instead of just get it every time on certain supports. So, it's okay. I just feel like I would be much more tempted now to just go ahead and get something else, like an Ardent Sensor or a Redemption or, you know, just something else useful instead of this in most cases on mini supports. But it can still be good in the right few situations. It's obviously a big nerf to Vlad because Vlad doesn't need mana regen, and to a lesser extent to Singed as well. Which, those are the intended people that they wanted to nerf. I knew they were going to nerf this. I was talking about this in 8.10. I said they're going to nerf Shurelya's, and they're going to make it, like, worse for Vlad. Because Vlad is really abusing that. Okay, Runic Echoes are giving it 20 extra AP, which is nice. I'm not sure if that's going to be enough to bring in AP supports again, but that's certainly going to help. Eve is already pretty viable in some circumstances, and I think this will obviously help her out a lot. Then the other champion that I'm kind of keeping my eye on is Elise. I feel like Elise is just kind of conspicuously absent in this meta. I'm not really sure what's up with that, why people aren't playing her, especially at a professional level. It seems like she's always been a champion that's very, very strong in the early game. Maybe the itemization's just been too bad. Maybe Runic Echoes was just too awful compared to Warrior. Maybe this evens it up. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Elise move up a few percentage points here. And for Eve to move up a little bit too. I mean, in theory, this is good on champions like Fiddlesticks and Italy as well, but I don't think those champs are going to be as good for most people. But I definitely think, because Eve is already good, that this is going to help Eve out a lot, and then this might bring Elise out of the woodworks a little bit. She historically has been very good into Graves after that nerf, because he doesn't get magic resist off of his true grade anymore, so I feel like she should be able to fight Graves early on. Not entirely confident in that, but it helps. So if you've been wanting to try out some AP supports, give them a whirl. I think those are probably the two that I would recommend the most, or Elise and Eve. I'm trying to think if there is somebody else that, like, not including troll things like full AP Zac or full AP Shyvana. I think Fiddle still is going to have too many problems. I think of anyone else in the jungle that would want Runic Echoes. That would be like mainstream, strong jungler. Potentially. Maybe like Echo or something. Yeah, maybe Echo. I think Echo still has a lot of problems though, so mostly just Eve and Elise. So it's good. We'll see if it shakes up the meta a little bit. Elise is very good in the early game too, as I mentioned before. I want to click on her now. Like, what is up? Did they nerf her a while ago and I just like don't remember? Because she's just been like really far out of the meta and really bad for a while now. But she used to be picked like all the time. I forgot they actually buffed her. Yeah, they gave her some buffs in patch 8.7 and people still haven't played her that much. That's a really strong buff early on. That extra 10 damage on your level 1 Q is a big deal. Maybe she's just like the runes are bad with her. They increased her AP ratio on her W a lot. Base magic damage reduced by 5. No, by a lot at higher levels. But you don't use this that... I guess you use it some. Okay, so they nerfed that a little bit, and then they nerfed the cooldown. Maybe it was that 718 buff or nerf. I just don't feel like that's enough to fully push her out, but maybe it was. Yeah, maybe she's just really bad with the current runes. I don't know. It feels like Electrocute would be good on her, but I don't know. We'll see. Okay, as far as precision goes, I think people aren't going to take Fleet anymore. I think a lot of champs are just going to go over to press the attack like they had done before. Before Fleet got reworked. Because this movement speed is down a lot, and now you don't get this extra heal equal to your crit amount whenever you crit. And it's down to 30% from 20% healing, so... Especially the champions that are going to go Blade the Ruined King early on, that are going to get that Vamp Scepter, which, remember, is a decent amount. Like, Lucian could, in theory, get that component early. Twitch is definitely going to get it early, I think. So those champions might be okay with it, but... It might depend on if you have a healing support. So if you have a Nami or a Soraka or something, you can almost certainly get away with not going Fleet Footwork. If you don't, you might still have to go Fleet because they did just nerf your overall health regen as well. So, we'll see. I think Fleet will cycle out. I just think people will find other ways to deal with this. Because I think that's a pretty big nerf. Hail of Blades, I think, is garbage. I don't think anyone's going to get this rune, hardly. Like, the few champions I could think of that might get this would be something like a, maybe Vayne. Maybe, maybe Cog. Maybe Caitlyn. It's just hard to imagine why you would get this most of the time over, like, Press the Attack or Lethal Tempo. Another thing is that, like, it's in the Domination tree, and a lot of AD carries can't really leverage the second row of the Domination tree, because the only thing that's really useful there... I mean, I guess you could maybe go Taste of Blood and get a little bit of healing that you're going to be missing from Fleet Footwork, but it's not going to make up for it, I don't think. But is Sudden Impact, and a lot of AD carries just can't use Sudden Impact that well. Like, Twitch can, but a lot of other ones can't. And then you also have to get something like, you know, Eyeball Collection, and then what do you get as the Hunter, you know, down near the bottom? What are you going to get as AD carry? I guess you can get the ability healing Hunter thing, but are you really going to get that over the Precision tree? Like, the Precision tree is so much better. Right? You get Alacrity, you get Triumph, you get Coup de Grace, like, you get so many good things, and you get the attack speed, just as the passive for going Precision tree. So, you know, there's so many better things in the Precision tree than in the Domination tree for most AD carries. So that's the thing. You can't just look at a rune in isolation and say, okay, this could be good on this champ. You have to think, okay, what about the other 3 runes in the tree? How does that stack up to... you know, a different rune tree? And the answer is, in Precision, it's just way, way better for AD carries than Domination is most of the time. So, I just don't think this is ever going to get used by serious players. Ultimate Hunter is interesting. So basically, this is Ultimate Hat, except instead of just using your ultimate to get stacks of it, now you have to actually get kills or assists. So... there might be some champions that would want this. You know, potentially you could go, like, Rakan could go this as a secondary and get, like, Zombie Ward plus Ultimate Hunter now, instead of going into the Resolve tree, but I don't think it's going to be worth it to do that. Because you want to go into Sorcery so that you can get Nimbus Cloak and Celerity and all this other good stuff in Sorcery. I don't know. It'll be a tough call. I mean, maybe Nimbus Cloak is just cute and not necessary on Rakan, though. It's hard to give up Nimbus Cloak plus Celerity, but, like, maybe you could go Zombie Ward plus Ultimate Hunter instead of Nimbus Cloak plus Celerity. If you want to go, like, Guardian as your main tree. I don't know. There might be a few people that want Ultimate Hunter. Someone like Rengar would probably really like this. Even has, like, a picture, basically, of Rengar on it with, like, the Lion's Mane there. So I could see someone like Rengar liking this. Maybe. Like, he could do the, what's it called? Like, if he has Nimbus Cloak, then maybe he doesn't need the speed from the, whatever the hunter that gives you the extra movement speed. Maybe he doesn't need that anymore, so now he could go ultimate hunter instead and just do Nimbus Cloak. I'm not really sure, but there might be a handful of champions that would want this. But I don't think a lot of champs are going to use that. And then, yeah, Nimbus Cloak. So this one's actually really interesting. So whenever you cast your ult, you get like 100 extra movement speed for 2.5 seconds. It does decay. I don't know how fast it decays. I'd have to play it, feel it out, and see. The cooldown can be less than 60 seconds, but basically whenever your ult's up, this is going to be up to on most champions. So here are some of the champions off the bat that I think could be really good with this. Elise could be extremely good with this because she can just press R, and that's her ultimate. So every time, you know, this is off cooldown at 1 minute, you just basically get a free ghost whenever you go into spider form. So I think that's kind of cool in a sense that, like, I don't know, maybe you can use it to close the gap on people when it's ready. But you also have to really be careful to play around that, because when you just use this in the jungle just to do your normal jungle stuff, then you're accidentally going to trigger Nimbus Cloak the way that it's worded. Because you don't have to hit anyone to activate this, so you're just going to activate this on accident a lot in your jungle, which is kind of awkward. So it might be something you have to get used to on Elise, but this potentially could be really good for running people down in ganks. If you're just, you know, you'd have to have a lot of practice with it and time it and say, okay, my Nimbus Cloak's almost off cooldown. I want to go gank right now. And then you could just roll up in spider form, just turn into spider, and then you get a free ghost for 2.5 seconds where you just come flying in on them. So that could be really, really good, but it's going to take practice to get that timing down and to coordinate that with your lanes. But that has a lot of potential, I think, on Elise, because she can use it on cooldown every time. And if it doesn't work out, whatever. It's just your spider form, right? So it doesn't really even matter because it's not a major resource. It's got a 6-second cooldown and basically doesn't cost anything. So that's interesting. Obviously, Fiddle, once he completes his ult, having that extra movement speed is really nice. You can, you know, reposition and make sure that you're getting everyone in your ult, so that's good. Fiora, this is going to be a grand slam on Fiora. She loves movement speed whenever she casts her ult, so she can trigger all of those vital points. So this is going to be extremely good on Fiora. Very, very good on Fiora. Jax is another one this is going to be really, really good on. Remember, this is the same thing as, or it's very similar concept to Essence Reaver. You want to be putting on proactive champions that have a really short cooldown ultimate that want to close the gap and stick onto people. Jax is another one. Really low cooldown ult. You know, a big thing with Jax is sometimes they can be hard to stick on people, but you're going to get that huge movement speed, you know, on ganks now, especially if you're jungle Jax. You can run in, you know, start your little E, your counter strike, and then run in with 100 extra movement speed, jump on them, counter strike, boom. So really, really nice, especially for a minor rune. I mean, this is not quite as good as Predator rune, but it's kind of close. And it's a minor rune, so you can get it as a secondary. You don't have to fully commit to the sorcery tree to get this. You could get this as your secondary tree if you want to and still pick it up. Kaisa, another fantastic one, right? You ult on top of somebody, you're definitely sticking to them because you're getting 100 extra movement speed. So that's very nice. Same thing with Lucian. You can run right up in their face and make sure that you hit them with all of your ult shots. Olaf, phenomenal on Olaf, right? So not only can you have Predator plus you know, Righteous Glory if you want that, but now you can also have Nimbus Cloak. So you're just going to be flying in there at 1,000,000 miles an hour whenever you pop your ult. Super strong. Rakan, obviously going to be strong on him as well. Rengar, very strong on Rengar. You pop that 2.5 seconds, you're definitely going to be able to run up and get on top of people. Singed, very good on Singed as well. Pop your ultimate, not only can you run forward and potentially flip somebody, but you can also pop that and run away. Swain, very nice, and Vlad. So both of these have proactive ults. You just pop them, and you want to run, get closer to people in battle. Boom, it's got you covered. So I think that can be a very, very meta-designing rune, and I don't think a lot of people have really thought about this very much or have talked a lot about this rune, at least not in the preliminary, like, PBE stuff. Most people have focused on the AD carry stuff, which is very important, but I think this little rune here is a very big deal as well. It's going to make some champions that are already pretty strong even stronger. Okay, and then random like nerf to minion dematerializer. I really don't think this is that big of a deal. Maybe at like really high level play, maybe this matters, but I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal. Now this is interesting in that, basically towers are going to be a lot easier to kill. Is what I'm taking away from this, especially Nexus turrets. 600 less health is a really big deal. Now, yes, it does regenerate more per second, 15 per 5. But now it stops the regeneration at a certain threshold, up to like in thirds. So I think this is pretty much going to make like games easier to close out. So towers are going to get destroyed a lot easier. If you just do minor chip damage to towers, they'll heal up faster though. So I don't know. We'll see. I think ultimately this is going to cause towers to go down faster though. And then turret gold is now giving a lot more focused gold. But it's giving more ultimate, like, net gold as well. So it's basically 300 of nearby champions instead of 175, so that's 125 more. But, oh, I guess it is deleting 25 for each person, which would be 125. Okay, so it's gold neutral, but now it's going to be giving a lot more to the person who destroys the tower. So it's okay. As a support, you're going to get less gold off of this overall, but whatever. It's not going to matter that much in the long run, I don't think. Nerfing Baron, thank God. It's just so dangerous to take Baron right now. I don't know. I feel like it was just silly, but now they're nerfing the damage a lot. There might be some champions that could go back to soloing it. I don't know. We'll see, but this will definitely make it a lot safer to try to do the Baron, which I like. Scuttle Crab, they're nerfing it a little bit. I never really was on the Scuttle hype train anyways. I didn't think it was as overpowered as people thought it was. I think it was kind of a placebo effect where everyone's just playing these super early game junglers because they thought that it was super powerful. But either way, you know, I don't think it's going to matter that much. I think it's going to be the same kind of meta. People still fight over it. It'll be fine. And then they're adding a little bit of experience in the jungle. I don't know why they're doing this. Junglers are already ridiculously powerful right now, especially Graves and Zen. So, I don't know. I think they should nerf the jungle more, but whatever. This is fine. It's not a huge deal. And then they're doing like some last hitting stuff here. That's not going to matter. ARAM, sure. Instant feedback if you get banned. They'll tell you why you're getting banned more. It's basically don't be a jerk, you won't get banned. The ping, this will be interesting to see. It'll sound more distant if someone's pinging from far away. Just add a little bit more audio clarity there, which is cool. So interesting. So if you're like level 1 zillion, I play the game a lot and I'm not even level 200, I'm pretty sure. I'm like in the 100s. I don't even know how you can play that much League of Legends. I mean, I guess you could. I play for 5 hours a day for the stream, and I'm nowhere close to these thresholds. So, like someone to be level 500, you'd probably have to almost literally play this game for like 20 hours a day, or something like that, to get to that threshold within the next couple of patches. Okay. But anyways, okay, that's going to be it for this patch, so thank you very much. So the TLDR is 80 carries going to be shuffled up a little bit. Be sure to watch my 80 carry video to hear more about that if you want to see the tier list. So 80 carries getting shuffled up. We might see some more junglers. Watch out for Nimbus on very specific champions that it's going to be really good on. I've got the ones that I think will be most impacted here. I'm sure there are some other ones people can think of out there. But I think these are like already champions that are pretty good. Like I didn't mention the super obscure ones that might be able to use it in different ways, but these are ones that are like already, most of them pretty viable, decently strong, that will gain a lot off of this. Yeah, I think that's kind of the biggest thing. It's just the AD shuffle and a couple of the rune changes that could move some stuff around. Everything else is just pretty good overall. I think it's a good patch. It did most of the stuff that I would like to see. I think it's moving in the right direction. I just wish that they would just do something to disincentivize people from camping bottom all game and just make like 80 carries and supports have a little bit more experience in the mid game, so you're not down 3 or 4 levels to mid and top lane. But overall, I think it's good. I think it's fine. You can still have a high impact as a support, or if you play the right 80 carry. It's just you got to make it through that mid game and just kind of or early game rather, and just play Survivor. But that's going to be it. Thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.